Well, welcome to another session of On the Couch. Today, I am joined by a couple of Moree legends. Jason, who heads up the Salvos in the Moree and is a big part of Lifehouse. We're in a great partnership with the Salvos here. And also Phil, who has just preached a fantastic word, week 2 of our series on Go. Phil, couple of things. How did it feel for your first ever time speaking to a lens? I mean, we had a few people gathered around. What was that experience like?
Oh, it was different. I don't normally get nervous before a preach, but that was just something else. Like I was nervous and I was aware of like the microphone and the camera, and it just felt really awkward. Okay, that's people say that it feels awkward, it feels weird. What about this? We're in Moree, and one of the things about our time in Moree that was just always humorous is that no matter who was standing at the front, there was always a fly flying around them. And today, we were not left disappointed. I don't know if it came through on the screen. I really hope it did. But Phil, you were just... I find that Moree locals, they pay the fly no attention. They just barrel on. Yeah, that's it. We're used to it. Like, we just swallow them and move on.
You told me the other day, pre-COVID, that you were leading worship and...
Yeah, one went straight up the nose.
Oh. Yeah.
I don't know. I had the guitar, so I couldn't move. I was trying to sing. So.
Oh, sensational. Well, as I said, Phil, it's a great word, fitted perfectly in this series on our One Mission series on Go, and you really brought out that as we go. It's a great thought. I'm going to go to Jace first. And Jace, you just want to, because you and I were both in the audience. Yes. Have you heard that before, that taking that from the perspective of, not just go and make disciples, but as you go, more like a day-by-day principle of a faith? Have you heard it presented that way before?
Yeah, I guess one of the, probably the context of how I see my life as a Christian, we see that Jesus Christ comes and offers us salvation. We then partner with him, and, within the spiritual context, things change, and even just within our lives, the way we see things change. And the way I guess I perceive what Christ has called all mankind that, follow him to do is that he has, I guess, in a position of being sent, that rather than sort of asking us to go, he has actually turned us around because he is in us, and he has sent us as he was sent himself. Yes. And so when you look at the life of Jesus Christ, he wasn't conservatively still or not moving or functioning in being a person that was doing what God called him to do. He just walked and he lived his life listening to Jesus Christ and listening to God himself. And that's kind of how I see our lives to be, is that where we are sent people. It's not like we have to get up out of bed to then work out where are we going to go, but actually where we are, that within our spirit he's called us to live as people who are sent, yes. Sent to achieve something or sent to do something significant.
Okay, I'll stick with you for a moment on that conversation, because you're not from Moree originally. Where are you from?
I live in Sydney, was born down there and
grew up there. Okay, so there is that sent day-by-day principle, which you've expounded on beautifully as a Christian. What about that call to actually get up and take a step to be sent somewhere where you weren't actually from, and to follow the mission? Because this is, I know we've had many conversations, this is really on the side of the Salvos van, it says transforming Moree one life at a time. So you've really come with a sent nature in you. Tell us about that for you. And Jess is Jason's wife, and they've got 2 beautiful boys, Israel and Zion.
Yes.
Tell us about that, because I think people would go, wow, that's massive. Did it feel massive for you, and how's that played out?
Well, at the time, I remember Jess and I, probably about a month before we were approached to go to Moree, it wasn't in our sight. I was working a really comfortable sort of progressive job at the Salvos at headquarters. I was happy with what I was doing. I was achieving great things, or in my mind anyway. And for me, I just kind of saw a different pathway of what I was going to do. I was going to continue working at head office, and wherever that took me is kind of the path I was aiming to follow, because that's what I saw at the time. Yeah. And Jess really come to me saying, look, I really feel that we're not in the place where God's called us to move into, and that will change. And to me, I wasn't on the page with that. I was, well, I've got my path. This is what I'm going to achieve. This is going to increase our income. It's going to increase my, status. And even saying that even just makes me cringe right now, because that's not even who I am. But I guess it's the life I kind of bought into.
Yes.
Because that's all I saw. And about a month after, the Salvation Army come to us to say, hey, we really would like you to consider to moving to Moree. And Moree always had a very special place in my heart. It had been up and back for over a decade. As Jess has been up here, we were doing some work with the Salvos. Yeah. And as soon as I kind of heard that that's what they wanted for us, in my mind, a penny just dropped. I was like, well, the door's open. This is kind of, hey, Jess, this is what you're talking about. And, I got a big, I told you so. As all great wives, don't say, but they just give you the look and you're like, I've got that wrong. And it was tricky actually, because then I was comfortable coming, and then we found out we were having our first child. And so Jess then, was really concerned, all this change that was going to happen, new job, new house, nowhere near family, all in the same context, babies on the way, So that was really quite challenging for us to work through. Even in the process of moving, that was difficult because, I guess our headspace wasn't quite prepared for all the things that that was going to change in our lives. Yes. For me, I like change. I generally, I don't like change for the sake, but I like change for the things that are going to be better. Yes. And so I could see that. And Jess could see that too. It's just there were other things that were impinging. So
big things.
Yeah, the way that we kind of live it, the way we go about things affected the way we saw it. So even though it was the same thing, the same opportunity.
So how long have you been in Moree now?
Just over 3 years.
Okay, so just over 3 years. In that time, you had another child come into your family, beautiful Zion. Tell us now, looking back at that decision, what's that done for your own, being sent? Now, people aren't going to be able to relate to moving from their town to another one, but I reckon that this translates directly to stepping out in faith. Phil, we'll come to you with a question, but in the meantime, you just sit there looking tight. When you step out of your comfort zone and you share with someone the gospel, regardless of their response, I think your faith generally increases. You get more confident. Have you found a greater confidence in God's calling on your life in your stepping out to come to Moree? Although I imagine the impact or the influence that you perceived you were having in Sydney prior to coming was much greater. You've come to a small, in comparison, country location, but have you changed?
Yeah, I guess I've experienced things I never would have experienced. I've wrestled with, I guess, the idea where God has called me to help people and to share the gospel, and taking those two things hand in hand can be tricky, not because I'm afraid of talking about Jesus, but probably because people are in vulnerable positions in their life, and I'm, I guess, respectful of the fact that people may not want to hear about Jesus, or because I'm in a different position of, I guess, power or support, and I don't want to be pushing something on them, but I do just want to share with them what we're about and leave it with them. So that's been difficult for me to try and find a balance between where naturally just who I am is Christ reflected, not in its perfect nature, but it's growing, and that I know that that's always at play, whether I'm talking to someone and just, talking to them, they're talking to me about their life or what's happening or the challenges they're facing, but also what in those moments does Jesus want to share with them?
Yes.
Is it that they need encouragement and love, from someone who represents Jesus in the flesh? Yes. And looking at, okay, sometimes I don't respond so well to those. Maybe I just get carried on with what I'm doing, and I kind of think I've done that's what I think God's asked me to do, but I really haven't slowed down to listen to Jesus. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to impart of the Spirit of God to people?
Okay, that's really good because, Phil, you touched on that at the end. You said, listen to the Holy Spirit. Let him guide you as you go. What Jason's brought up there is, I think, fair for his role, but in one way or another, I think every Christian, wants to do this, but there seem to be so many barriers. You touched on one of them being fear of what the response might be. You said losing a friend, I think, is what you actually said in your preach. What are some of the other things that hold you back from really as you go, this as you go perspective in life, taking Jesus with you, sharing him?
Yeah, well, I think, for me personally, I don't want people to think badly of me. So people's perception of me is quite, I hold that quite high, and I don't want them to feel uncomfortable or awkward or put out or anything. So, and it's hard because I'm a builder and I work on a building site, so it's kind of a little bit awkward saying something about Jesus on a work site. So I find that I work with guys that I'm lucky I've got guys around me that are Christians on the site, but there's a few guys that aren't, and we just find that in our everyday conversation, things come up, even asking, well, how was your weekend? And I just say, yeah, it was good. I went to church, or not lately, but I'd say, man, the service online was awesome. You should tune in and all that kind of stuff. And you just drop little things here and there. And then I've found that when it comes to a crunch time in their life, you are generally the first person that they'll come to for advice.
Yes. So you are saying you've built something there where that trust allows that connection.
Yes. Yeah,
on a time when they're vulnerable around a life scenario. Yeah.
And I didn't say it in my preach, but this is what I was hoping came across, and I had thought about putting into it. But I think today we
Decompartmentalize.
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't say it in my preach, because it would have come across that way. But that's what we do in our lives, we've got our work life here, we've got our social life over here, and then we've got our Christian life or church life over here. Yeah. And that's what I try to get at as to inviting people into different areas of your life. So when you overlap those different circles in your life, then people get to see you in a different light.
Yes.
And it becomes easier to connect with people, and inevitably conversations are going to come up around the deeper things in life and around God and how would you attack this situation? Yes. And you can say, well, look, this is what happened. This is how I handle it. I really find that God is my pillar. I always go back to him and what he wants me to do. Yes. And he has helped me in the past, and I know he's going to help me when it comes up in the future. So,
that's great. Yeah. Okay, so we're coming into land. I'll get a pretty short response from both of you on this question. What's your experience when you see someone take a step closer to God? Because we know that the moment when someone gives their life to God, it very rarely, even like you expressed about Peter today, Simon Peter, there was already interaction with Jesus before that. So we know that there's a critical moment in there where someone actually turns their life over, and there's as many critical moments after it, but there's lots of critical moments before it. What experience do you have? What do you feel, if I could say? What's your vibe? What's your mood when you've just been able to express something like that to someone, and in some way it's encouraged them, and maybe they've taken a step forward? Is that something that how would you express that? What do you say? Do you feel satisfied? What's your response there?
I feel satisfied and I'm overjoyed, but at the same time, I don't know why I have this response, but I think there's so much more to do, yes, in their life. You know what I mean? It's that whole thing about doing life together. You can't just rely on the commitment part, if you know what I mean, to keep them going. You've got to continue to keep doing life with them.
Yes.
And I think we overcomplicate that part as well. Like we overcomplicate the making disciples part because we think, we've got to do this, this, and this, and check off a list.
Yes.
Whereas the discipling part afterwards is also, I think we overcomplicate it too. I think that can be simplified as the same thing as you're going, bring them along with you in whatever you're doing, and grow them up and continue to point them towards Jesus.
So good. Okay, you gave a long enough answer. I'm going to give you a different question. Phil spoke about the process of making disciples is one. I loved how he said this. It ends when we stand before Jesus. Do you still have someone in your life who you would say is helping you become a disciple?
Yes. I probably, since I was about 14, 15, I've had a number of people sow into my life, and where I guess God has opened my heart to listen to them. And also to know that throughout my life, I can call them when I've got things that I just don't know how to unpack. I'm a bit stuck, don't know where to move, don't know how to make a good decision. And so I call them and I ask for support. Hey, look, this is what's going on. Can you just give me your angle on it? And most of the time, because those people, I've got 3 or 4 people I can call, and I call them for different things based on just, I think, this person could help me most, or just sometimes I call a couple of them, see what they'll say, and just work with that. It just probably helps me settle myself to go, okay, there are people in my life that know what I'm going through, which is good for me, rather than feeling like the whole world's against me and I've got it all stacked on my shoulders.
Yes.
The other thing is I get some really wise counsel that I haven't even thought of before.
Right.
If I had, I probably would have solved these problems already. So I really get that. And with that, then I consider that and pray about that. And then sort of eventually I just move on with, I think this is where I need to go. And things are generally, they progress and they work out. And it's not perfect, but...
What I love about what you've just shared there, Jason, is exactly what Phil just shared with someone who doesn't know Jesus. And you've just gone, yeah, well, I'm still in that same place, because you've said, you're investing into these guys, which people invested into you when you were a teenager, and no one knew at that stage what your life was going to look like, what dreams God had put in your heart, what purpose, but they invested, and like you're investing, you're thinking there's still so much more to do. The consistent investing has now turned around so that, like you described, this guy on the work site might come to you for help when he needs it. You're doing the same thing. You haven't stopped doing it. You're just doing it now with your own God perspective. The process of making disciples is a one that every single faithful person has entered into at some space. I love this thought, there's a biblical precedent for supernatural salvation. There's no biblical precedent, meaning people have got saved miraculously. There's no biblical precedent for supernatural discipleship. Everyone that has advanced in their faith has done so through the participation of another person. And so you guys are brilliant examples of that in your own homes and in your workplaces. And it's been an honour and a privilege to spend time on the couch with these guys. And I look forward to many more rounds of golf. And I look forward to many more opportunities to watch footy together, and also to be on this journey of building Lifehouse and the Salvos ministries in Moree and seeing disciples won for Christ. Amen?
Amen.
Good on you, gents. All right. Thanks for joining us.